Hi, I'm Jo.
And I'm Kelly.
And this is the new Start Inspiring podcast.
If you're someone who looks after an organisation and really cares about your people, productivity and performance, this podcast is for you.
You're going to get advice and valuable insight.
We're going to bring you tools and information that you can apply directly to your business.
So if you really value your people,
listen to the Start Inspiring podcast.
Your future self is going to thank you for it. So here we are again for our November edition.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to be back together. And we were reflecting on our great event that we had in September, our 5-star event. We got great feedback about it and thought we might bring the content to life in our podcast this time.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting area of organisational maturity that we focused on the day about scaling businesses and in particular start-up to scale-up space.
Yeah.
And that we thought it'd be really good today to come together and have a conversation about that. So
yeah.
What did you share with people on the day that we can explore today?
Well, I think we shared our understanding and experience and expertise probably in that space, and understanding that businesses go through 5 stages of growth ordinarily. So you've got that real lovely startup, that seedling of an idea, you're a founder, and then you progress to kind of an enterprise, transforming enterprise level. And we're really talking about that 3rd level. So, you know, the first one being 5 to 10 employees, the next one being up to 50. And then that scale up space is where you go kind of from 50 employees to 250 employees. And that's really predominantly where you get a chunk of money or some investment. And these are organisations that don't just want to plod. These are organisations that have had that investment, ordinarily PE backed, and they are scaling at speed. So they're trying to 10x, 100x their product and their growth in the world, I guess.
Yeah.
And the exciting journey that they go on. But actually the challenge of that journey, if you're a founder, moving from, can you imagine kind of moving from that really small group of individuals to 250 people, and on a journey to then go to the next bit after that.
Yeah. The founder's a really important person in all of this, isn't it? You know, and I know that this will resonate with you because you are also a founder. But just kind of stepping into the founder's shoes then about all of those stages, but particularly the stage that we're most interested in or that we spend a lot of time in, is a real time where, you know, your baby is growing up. Your baby's answering back, in fact, right?
They are definitely answering back.
And you are, as the founder, may have sold your business. You might have had to take investment for the first time and are getting used to having a whole new stakeholder to look after. And you are going through a period of needing to put your trust in other people and make sure they're doing things their way but your way too, because actually when you bring in great people, and you absolutely do need to in this space, you bring in great people, they're bringing their ideas, which should grow and build your business into, you know, what it's got the potential to become.
Yes.
But that might actually shift quite a long way from the original seedling, the original idea that a founder holds close or, you know, really believed in. And there's some really tough decisions for the founder to make along the journey, isn't there?
Absolutely. I mean, it's very uncommon that the product that you have in the scale up period is actually the product you started out with, or the business design that you started out with as an originating founder.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. And you're going through, and certainly when you start to get that investment, you might actually need to redesign. So you've got to that point where your product works, you've tested it in the market, it's viable, investors believe in it enough to invest in it, or maybe your joint venture or whatever. So you know that product works. This scale up space is no longer playing with things and going, oops. This is, you've got something, you've got investment, you're now scaling it, you are really focused on becoming a significant player in your market. Your competitors are starting to, if they haven't already, really notice you because you are now a viable competitor. But as you say, you've kind of scaled that team as well. And in actual fact, the investors will be coaching and mentoring and supporting you, of course, but may well be challenging you about the choices you make. And some of those might be really brave. So if I think about a recent client that we've been working with, one part of their business created £1 million EBITDA a year. The other part of the business was much bigger. And the investors were really influencing the founder to drop that part of their business.
Wow.
Now, as a founder,
£1 million.
you would never let go. As an originating founder, you would never let go of £1 million. That's really, really difficult, right? That's bottom line EBITDA profit. But as an investor, you can see that the other part of the business had significant growth potential. And whilst this was dropping £1 million to the bottom line, it was taking a lot of individuals' time. It was creating less focus for the business, and therefore was actually detracting from that growth opportunity. And so that's where you're at as a founder, and it's brilliant experience, but you're letting go of stuff you genuinely care about. Like, this is your baby. Well, it was your baby. And like you say, now it's growing up and it's becoming and shaping into something much different.
And your sphere of influence changes then, right? Because what you believed in and nurtured and grew is shape-shifting and adjusting to the market and finding its way with the help of many other people, especially when you get to this space. We're talking kind of 50 to 250 people. That's a lot of other people to then be responsible for.
Absolutely. And that's why I know sometimes people think purpose might be a bit woolly or a bit woo-woo, but that's where purpose is really key. So even as a founder myself, if my making work for everyone is the purpose, then even if they're not my ideas or they're not the choices that I would originally have made, but actually it goes some way to serve that purpose, even in a better way, then it makes sense.
Then it makes sense.
And actually, if the purpose is clear, I can recruit talented individuals like yourself who buy into that purpose and therefore are much more likely to move with us into the direction that serves that.
And so if we think about our community then, who certainly on the day at the event, we were talking about, well, how can we as people, professional leaders, really learn, I suppose, what's happening for the founder, and how can we best work with a founder at that time of an organisational maturity?
Absolutely.
In order to help to, it's the foundations that they're building at that stage, isn't it? You're shifting really from, certainly up to 50 people, you're shifting from it's kind of okay if there's no real policy, or it's kind of okay there's no process for something, or we haven't really thought through how we might attract people, we just kind of been putting an advert out. All of those kind of very straightforward parts of a people professional remit. What advice could we give them that would help them to think about how it feels for the founder and therefore help the founder on that journey?
Well, that was one of the aha moments, wasn't it, for some of the community, was to say, actually, how do we walk in their shoes? Actually, what is the journey they're on? They've gone from the individual that decides everything, drives everything, to bringing in specialists to the organisation. And you're right, I love that bit about, because there's always a tension when the founder goes and does what they think, and there is I'm doing it myself. I know I do it myself. It's like, I've got strong conviction that this is right. But I've also been the specialist saying, well, why did you bring me in and pay me this lovely salary if you're then not listening to me? So I think there is definitely something about having a really close relationship, really seeking to understand both points of view, and actually using that and embracing that diversity to make brilliant decisions. And also realising that the founder is now, at this point, a leader of leaders. That's a completely different job. And how to help them really distill their vision, their strategy, where they're going, so that the organisation can follow. Because, if I think about the things that the founders say to me when I'm coaching them, it's Nobody can do it as well as I can. Nobody's following. Nobody, it's all those things, and it's actually probably sometimes putting a mirror up and going, okay, so what might you need to do?
Yeah. Because people aren't inside their heads, right? We can't read your minds, read your thoughts, and therefore we don't necessarily, the people around a founder won't always intuitively know, certainly not in the early days of working with somebody, actually what they're thinking and what they want, and what's in their mind.
Yeah. And I love that bit when you were saying, the baby's growing up and it's answering back. It definitely is. Because at this point, your people going, but that's not a great idea, dear founder.
Yeah.
There's a better idea.
Yeah.
And you're going,
yeah,
just do what I want. And so there is this kind of there's a need for an adult type of conversation that says, actually, if we're all going towards the same thing, we're all really clear about what that is.
Yeah.
What ideas do we have collectively that allows us to do that? And that means the founder needs to shift a bit in terms of being more curious, understanding and unlocking the potential of the individuals in the organisation. But I think the best leadership teams I've seen and the best people officers I've seen have really understood the founder, worked in collaboration with the founder, and got that lovely balance between the tension of, them being the founder and the legacy and knowing what needs to be true next for success.
And I think it's a certain type of individual that goes into a business of this type of size, right? Because you are taking on that relationship. So if I think about being a HR director or a CPO, or actually at any stage of my HR career, it's always been about the relationship that I build with whoever I'm partnering with at that time.
Yes.
And that ability to build trust and, that tension that does exist, but you're having that more tense conversation behind closed doors, kind of being able to have very healthy conflict, speak your mind, but also respecting, of course, that you are dealing with somebody's what will feel to them like their baby.
Yeah, and you have to have that tension, because if nobody does that, what got you here won't get you there.
No.
And what we know from our research and from our experience, there are 3 areas that predominantly impact an organisation's ability to scale. The first one is leadership.
Yeah.
All roads lead back to the leaders, we say all the time. So we'll talk about that. Not having an infrastructure that's scalable, and marketing, actually. So have you invested? And all of those investments you've never really made before.
Yeah.
So I've now got to spend money on things that I haven't before to enable the next part of our growth journey.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's a little counterintuitive for leaders.
Yeah. Yeah, I can
value.
Yeah, I can totally appreciate that. And so I suppose then, as a people leader, you've been brought into a business. It's the first time they've had your role. The first time they've probably invested in having any type of HR function. You might be standalone at this stage, or it might be a very, very small team, certainly if you're reaching into more the 200s. And therefore, you've got to really focus on the things that are worth doing.
And when we talk about worth doing, I think there is, we just know instinctively treating people well is a good thing.
Yeah.
Making ethical, moral business decisions is a good thing.
Yeah.
Most leaders we work with, they will do that.
Yeah.
This is about, how does this function create value? Because if you're on an exit plan, that's the number that really matters.
Yeah.
And doing it in a ethical and in a way that is highly engaging for your people just makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
But I think for CPOs to really be talking about, how does this thing here create value for the organisation at this point when we do the next exit?
I totally recognise that. And I think I think it's such an interesting space. And when we were together with everybody else, you could just see people going, right, okay, so you're not just dealing with, a CEO or a board, you're dealing with, somebody that is so invested in the success of this business.
Yeah.
And also for some of the founders we might be dealing with, their role might be now quite different. They might have actually sold their business and they might be working now as a leader within a bigger business. And that comes back to leadership again, doesn't it? Because actually, as a founder, haven't always had that kind of years and years of leadership experience.
No.
You know, someone could come out of university or just have an idea in their bedroom, and then before they know it, they've got a seedling of a business that they're growing, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I think, I mean, we're working with 3 founders at the moment. They're actually on the other side of exiting. And it's a lovely reminder that this organisation is often this individual's or these individuals' identity.
Yeah.
And so different stages, I don't think I understood it until I worked with so many founders and so many scale-ups. You know, previously I've worked in large corporates, and I don't think the level of emotional attachment and identity sits with your job, or your organisation and the company, or actually the decisions others make if they're wrong.
And how that feels for them.
How that feels, and it feels more like your personal brand is under attack, not just an organisational brand, which of course is important too. Right?
Yeah, of course.
So it's personal.
Yeah. So if you're enjoying this episode, we'd love to hear from you. So give us a like or share our podcast with others. I'll let you enjoy the rest of the episode. And what would be your advice for, you know, the steps that someone that comes to work with a founder, what steps would you, as a founder yourself, what have you found that's worked for you?
Oh gosh, I think as a CPO, actually, in all organisations I've worked in, is to see myself as a leader of the business that happens to look after the people function.
Nice.
So I am at that table and I am able to talk about the future of the business, and then talk about how the people function is going to enable that. And get really crystal clear about the link to those. I think being a trusted advisor, really someone who the founder and the rest of the senior team can trust to talk to explore things with, to be vulnerable with, which we know is incredibly important, but to really seek to understand. I think that's important. And then I think in terms of delivery and execution, be really clear about the things that are going to make the biggest impact and ruthlessly focus on them.
That is so difficult to do in practice as well, isn't it? When you think about the whole scale of different things a people function could be doing for a business at this time, and really being clear about which ones. And of course, you know, it's interesting you were mentioning there about having worked in, you know, previously very corporate environments, big environments where so much of this stuff already happens. You're not having to create it for the first time.
No.
See, that is what we do now. And our ability, I think, for anyone working in this space to put the right level of control or bureaucracy versus agility, because I think that's quite I don't know, I suppose it gets quite a lot of heat, I think, in this type of environment, because, you know, certainly founders have been very used to just being able to make salary decisions themselves, right?
Yes.
Like this person, want to give them this money, end of. From a people perspective, we're then thinking about, how does that fit with everybody else? What does that mean for equal pay? What does that mean for, you know, is it equitable against, you know, other people? Does it pay the market rate? Is it more than the market rate? How does that sit with the total compensation? There's quite a lot of thoughts then that we have about, you know, the structure in which that one-off thing sits.
Yes.
And I suppose this is just one strand of many strands where we have to be good at going, what's right for this business at this time of its maturity, but that this will also create the foundations for the future, that we're not going to come back and go, oh, what do we do there?
I think that's spot on. So we talk a lot with our clients about best fit, not best practice, and what's right now. But I think also when you go back to that, how can the CPO really help, or the HR function really help? When you talk about it in a is this, that does sometimes come across as a bit like, are we just putting rules in for rules' sake? Versus actually what's happening is, when you were a small organisation, you got away with stuff. Now you're becoming a larger organisation of 250. Actually, when you don't make fair decisions on pay, this is the impact of it. When you don't have guardrails, and I love the idea of guardrails, not rules, not bureaucracy. Nobody wants red tape in their business. But how do we give guardrails that means we protect the legacy, the culture, the environment, the type of business that we want to be as we scale, because the only way a founder can start to let go of control is to have some of those things, to know that basically no one's going to take a really bad decision that they wouldn't perhaps have taken themselves, and undermine something critical like your organisational culture.
That's so nice. No, you're absolutely right. And then that piece about being really ruthless, picking the right thing. Let's explore the shit of yesterday.
Yes.
So we talked about the shit of yesterday at our event, and even for me, I was like, yes, I can totally see where I have gone into an organisation of this sort of size, and I've probably spent a whole load of energy trying to sort out the shit of yesterday. So the legacy of previous decisions, or the legacy of systems, I mean, that's a great example, where you end up piling all this time and energy into trying to sort something out, which actually isn't going to add any value for the future.
Right.
And we should just leave the shit of yesterday where it belongs.
Leave it where it belongs, because if it's not creating value, there is no
why are we doing it? Yeah, exactly.
So we talked about not only ruthlessly prioritizing, but actually where should you spend your time as a CPO, and your calendar is a beautiful truth teller. Really at that CPO level, you should be spending kind of 70% of your time in today, so nothing in yesterday, 70% in today, 20% in tomorrow, and then 10% in long term. And actually, as a senior leadership team, if you looked at your calendars, does it represent that? Or in fact, are we, which is more likely, spending 90% of our time in the shit of yesterday, that isn't creating value, and being ruthless on yourselves, because your role as senior leaders in the business is to create value, and move this organisation and unlock this organisation, not be working on that stuff.
No,
really,
it's got absolutely no value.
No, but it's hard. I mean, we're not sitting here thinking that's
no, it's definitely. Well, as well, I think what happens is there will be people in the organisation that are fixated on fixing whatever that was, because they are connected to that thing and still think it's an important thing to do.
We quite often, we've just done a leadership development program with an organisation and have been looking at their strategy, their culture. And there was a lovely aha moment from an individual that was like, so our system has changed at a faster rate than the human behaviour that we need to change. And that's the reality. So actually, how do you really concentrate on the human behaviours in your organisation, and get that to go as fast as you need it to as well?
Love that. And I suppose then there's probably, if we're going to be ruthless, I'm going to try and think about the things that probably are going to make the most difference in this space. We're probably talking about things like really establishing that kind of growing middle management group. Everybody knows that is a challenging group. It's not the people that are challenging per se, but they've got it kind of tough in the middle there, haven't they? They've got it coming up from below, they've got it coming down from above. We need them to be as fit as they can be for the future. And how can we help them be the best they can be? Of course, the employee experience. Let's think about our employee experience in the same way we would a customer. So we spend a lot of time in organisations thinking about the customer experience. What's their journey been like? What's their engagement like? It should be exactly the same for people. And the building blocks of that we can put in an organisation that's scaling at this point. And then I guess the third point is about systems.
Absolutely.
And how important at this point of an organisational growth, getting your HR system right, getting it to collect the data to give you the insight you're going to need in the future, as well as keeping people's information safe, making sure people are paid well, getting some of that efficiency and effectiveness out of a system. It might seem like that's quite a big investment at this moment, but actually when you get to the next size, having a system, spit out contracts and offer packs is going to make an enormous difference.
Absolutely. And if you think about unlocking potential, how do you unlock that potential if you don't understand it?
You won't, will you?
So
you don't know what you've got, you don't know where you're going.
The
bit in the middle is then
Absolutely.
and clear.
Absolutely. And we know to attract the very best talent, we need to be looking after them. We know actually most people don't leave because their pay isn't high enough. I mean, it's part of a reason. But the two predominant reasons in all exit interviews that we do are I didn't see a development path, or I wasn't invested in, and I wasn't growing. And as human beings, we need to grow. We need to learn. We need to feel a challenge.
Yeah.
Or I didn't have a relationship with my immediate manager that I should have for me to thrive.
So important, isn't it, that relationship? Like, couldn't be more important than it, you know, the many relationships. We see the organisation through that person, don't we? Because all of their thoughts and views of the organisation naturally happen, you know, without them maybe even realising. So, some good ideas and thoughts there about this particular part of organisational maturity, and particularly I think the piece around the founder and learning and understanding their world, their thoughts, which can be incredibly powerful. Absolutely. And we're going to pull together, we've got a blog on our event and the content of our event, which we will get out to our community. It's been great catching up again.
Thank you. I love these days.
Me too.
Thanks so much for listening to the Start Inspiring podcast. I'm Kelly.
And I'm Jo, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.